Streaming.
Okay, yeah.
And so start streaming. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Good morning. Today is July 18, and sorry for the delay for a few minutes because I was waiting for some students and they haven't showed up yet. However, I'm going to start recording the lectures for chapter 18. Okay, chapter 18 is about costing systems. There are two costing systems, job order costing and process costing, and we are going to go over chapter 18, job order costing. As we said, there are two types of costing, job order and process costing. So some businesses adopting one of the two systems depends on what kind of business that you are in, and some businesses adopt the two costing system, process costing and job order costing, in which they call operations costing system. The job order costing system is used by companies that make unique or special order products. Okay, yeah. Good morning. We have one coming in, but there's no picture, so it's just sound. Yeah. So we're talking about chapter 18, job order costing system. I said earlier that there are two costing systems. Okay, it's job order costing system and process costing system. So if you are a business that build or makes unique products, okay, if you are a business that making unique products, each product is different. Okay, for example, if you make t-shirts, but the t-shirt itself is not unique, but once you put in it a logo, it becomes a special order. Okay, that's a job order costing. All right. If you are making cups with a logo on them, Texas College logo, that becomes a job order costing. Yeah. But if you are just making the foam cups that you produce on a mass level, okay, that's process costing. All right. So we're going to look at the costing system where you make unique products. Okay, if you if you're making a football field, that's a unique product. It's a job order. If you're building houses that are, each house is different, that's also a job order costing. All right, they will use job order costing. So like this says here, job order costing is used by companies that make unique products. So you take the product usually and you divide it into projects. Okay, you divide it into projects. For example, building the house, the first project may be preparing the base, and then the second project may be building the skeleton of the house, just putting the wood and all of that. And then third project may be putting the material around it. Fourth project is the roof. Fifth project is make it ready. So, and each project has in it material, labor, and overhead. Each project, they have what you call cards. They have for each job has a card. So you might want to say job number 101, job number 102, job number 103, and on and on. Each job has a card, and on that card you record the direct materials, direct labor, and direct overhead. The difference between job order and process costing is that process costing is think of assembly line. Have you ever worked on an assembly line before?
Not really.
Whereby you produce things on a mass level. Okay, that you're making units that look alike exactly, same measure, same size, same. If you are making the bricks, for example, the bricks that they build the houses with, so that's every piece is exactly the same shape, same size. So that's when you produce things on a mass level. That's process costing, whereby it goes through different stations. The first station maybe is preparing the material. Each station has material, labor, and overhead. Each station, yeah. But each station is unique. The first station you build something. And you move into the second station, you have something else added to the product. Third station, something else added. And the fourth station, maybe when it's complete, the product is totally complete. And then the last station, when it's put into boxes, yeah. I remember one time I worked in a sugar factory. It goes through, I remember it goes through different stations. They bring the sacks, big sacks of sugar, so already, and then they put it into, what do you call that, cube, like that?
Yeah.
And then it goes in.
It goes out kind of like a V shape.
Yes. And there is a line. There is a line there whereby you have the small bags. Okay, you have the small bags. They put into starts dripping it into small bags, and then the small bags will move onto. They go to the next stations, and the next station they close, and then in the next station they are put into boxes, yeah, and then they put on the truck for delivery to the different places, yeah. But that's one simple thing, one simple example of process costing. Yeah. If you're making paint, okay, the paint, or you're making Coca-Cola bottles, or you're making foam cups, those are all process costing without logo on them. Yeah, that's called process costing. See the difference? Job order is where you build a unique product. Process costing is where you produce things on a mass level. Okay. Okay. Let me move along a little bit. See, once you figure out, let me see if I can find my chalk here. Once you divide the whole product into different projects, is one project, two projects, jobs. Sorry, different jobs. 101 job, 101 job, 102 job, 103. So each one has direct material, direct labor, and overhead. Direct material, direct labor, overhead. Same thing for this one. So once the whole project or product is done, you combine all the materials, you combine all the labor, you combine overhead. That will give you the unit cost. Like we said, if you're building a house, I was telling him, if you build a house, you divide the house into different projects. For example, the base first, and then you put the skeleton, then you put that thing around the wood.
Oh, the filters?
Yeah. So it's different projects. different jobs. Each stage has labor, material, labor, and overhead. Each stage, and so you prepare each stage. You give it a car. In that car, for example, the base. How much did the base cost altogether? Material, labor, and overhead. How much the skeleton? How much the roof? And then you add everything together. Now give you the unit cost, the house, the cost for building the house. Yeah, before it is sold. Yeah, okay. Also, service organizations also do adopt the job order costing. Yeah, not just the manufacturing or the building of the. They also use cards. The same thing. Yeah. Now, cost allocation. Now, there is a difference between allocation and tracing. Okay, the direct material and direct labor, they don't need. They already known. They are known. Yeah, but the allocation that you need is for the overhead, the costs that are not easy to identify. Those are the overhead costs. Yeah. So cost allocate the process of assigning a collection of indirect costs, such as overhead, to specific cost objects. Specific cost object. Now, the material can be cost object, labor can be cost object, the employee is a cost object, the whole department is a cost object, the whole company is a cost object. Yeah. So when you allocate cost, your allocation is allocating the overhead to the product, to the employee, to the department. Okay. So you will use a cost driver. Okay, you will use a cost driver. What is a cost driver? Cost driver is what causes cost. What drives cost? Direct material drives costs or causes cost. What causes the cost to occur, to happen? Yeah. So that's what the cost driver is. So you identify cost drivers, and then you allocate the cost to those drivers. Yeah. Okay. So a driver might be direct labor, might be units produced, maybe different activities. All right. Those are cost driver. As the cost driver increases in volume, it causes the cost pool. Okay, you have a different pools. You have when you have too many, when it becomes too much labor, too much material. Okay, then or many expenses related to material, many expenses related to labor, and then you pool those costs together. Okay, so you will have a cost pool, you call that. So cost pool is the collection of indirect costs assigned to a cost object. And we're not talking about the direct. Okay, the allocation, like we said, it has to do with the indirect. You're allocating it, yeah. But the direct is not problem. The direct costs are not problem. We already know what they are. But the indirect costs are the ones that you have issues with, and how you allocate them to the product. All right, that's the major issue. So you identify drivers. Okay, you identify drivers, and then you allocate those indirect costs to those drivers. Okay, and we said drivers mean what drives cost. Okay, such as indirect, there's indirect material, indirect labor. Okay. Now, allocating costs of overhead has first stage in it. You do a planning. You plan an overhead rate. What does that mean? What are we talking about when we say a plan overhead rate? Okay, that means you got to come up with some kind of base, some way to allocate overhead. Okay, because like we said, that's the biggest headache. Yeah. So first, you determine you say maybe 10% of material is indirect, 10% of like that. So you have to come up with a rate. It's called the predetermined overhead rate. Okay, you have to come up with a rate. That rate usually is an estimation. All right, remember we said allocating, I mean estimating. So it is an estimation. Estimated overhead cost divided by estimated cost driver activity. So what does that mean? Is that you identify the largest or the biggest activity that's happening. So for example, is your place of work labor intensive? That means there's a lot of labor in it? Or is your place have working machines? There are lots of machines in your place. That's where the overhead is, where you have the highest activity. So it might be too much materials. Everything is material. So that's where, so you got to estimate that. First find what is your activity, major activity. All right, and then you say overhead is going to be, you estimate the overhead. The overhead that's going to cover this activity is $10,000. And we expect that since we are labor intensive, there's too many, everything is work, labor. You have employees doing the job. So we may have 1,000 labor hours. So you estimate that too. So you estimate the overhead cost, you estimate the activity, all right? So then you divide the estimated overhead cost by the estimated activity, and that will give you that rate, okay? And then you apply that rate to, now that's, they looked in details yesterday.
Yeah, you didn't hear that thump?
No, Dr. Chen came and they looked and everything and they couldn't find nothing.
No, I'm just talking about just now. I had a thump come from back there.
Oh, that's somebody probably doing cleaning.
No.
You think they clean?
Alright.
I ain't nothing. See you soon.
Somebody probably doing cleaning.
It must be one of them mornings when you come in. You ain't never late.
Guys, I don't believe it was a snake, first of all. Sometimes outside you hear a massive voice that says, maybe birds all together, or that's what you heard yesterday.
Probably something in the AC. Yes, they did what we did. They just looked in there, so they didn't do no extra investigation.
Yes, they did. They looked in the roof and they looked around in detail. They couldn't find nothing yet. Yeah, it was something outside. Believe me, all those sounds come together. Sometimes you hear hundreds of birds at one time, or even that thing in the summer that says zzz, they do it together. Those little things. What do you call those red?
Wasps.
Bees,
Not bees.
Wasps.
Yes, they make sound together. That's what it was outside, I think. And you thought it was inside here. That's why I told you there was something outside here. You did not believe me. You still don't believe me.
I don't know, Doc.
I don't know. It kind of sounds like.
It sounded right there, like
Then you hear
they over there mess around in there in the cloud.
And they look and as I told you, I saw a rat, a tail of a rat one time. Yeah.
You say it was small, about this big. What if it grown up? Now it's running.
So it was the one I saw.
that rat got ate by the mouse.
The one I saw just like that. See, it was like that, and it moved behind the heater.
That was probably the rattlesnake's lunch that day.
Most likely. Okay. Anyway, but that's how you find then you apply that rate. First you find the rate, first you identify the driver. what causes the cost, the highest activity. And then you estimate how much overhead that's going to cover that, and how much of that unit of activity estimation. Okay, and then you find the rate. Then you apply the rate to actual. So let's say we found the rate that you're going to have $5 per labor hour. It's going to be overhead. Then you find out how many actual labor hours were done, multiplied by that rate. All right. So the second step, you apply that rate. First step, you find the rate, predetermined overhead rate is equal to estimated overhead cost divided by estimated cost driver, cost activity. Okay? And then once you find that rate, then you apply. That will give you the estimated overhead. But that estimation can be, you could have overestimated or underestimated your head. Not your overhead. And so, step 3, recording actual overhead cost. The actual overhead costs such as indirect material, indirect labor, depreciation, property taxes, those are your indirect costs. Yeah. Reconciling applied, and that one, when you say record actual overhead costs, that means you're going to record them, you do a journal entry for that. All right? And then you reconcile. What happens? Did you over applied or under applied? That's the reconciliation. Okay? Now, over applied overhead cost, that means you overestimated. So what should you do about that extra? You compare between the actual and the estimated.
Don't you count it as a loss? Or
No, it's
not a loss, but
remember, it's only overestimation.
over.
Yeah, it's still an estimate. Yeah,
Yeah.
you overestimated. If the difference is material for the products produced, adjustments are made to accounts affected. So you may, if the difference is too big, if the difference is not material between the overhead and the estimated, between the actual and the estimated, then you debit cost of goods sold. If you overestimated or by just a little bit, okay, then the overhead count is debited and the cost of goods sold. That means you take it out of cost of goods sold. You have a little bit of extra, you take it out of cost of goods sold. That means you credit cost of goods sold. Okay, but if it is material, too much, you got to go back. Where was that? Is it in work in process? Is it in finished goods inventory? And cost of goods sold. Those are the three that you have to look into. Okay? If it is under applied, then that means your rate was a little bit short. Your actual overhead is more than what you estimated. Therefore, you got to put it into, you debit your cost of goods sold. That means you increase your cost of goods sold. All right? And if the difference is, the underestimation is material, then you're going to look on where did it go. Why is it material? Why is that too much under applied? Why is it like that? Then you go to work in process, finished goods, and cost of goods sold. Okay. Actual cost of goods sold or cost of sales, the adjustments for over applied or under applied overhead cost is necessary to reflect the actual overhead cost on the income statement. So you have to do the reconciliation. It's very, very important, yeah. Especially if it's material, yeah. Because see, you either if you overestimated your overhead, how does that going to affect your it's going to affect your revenues, because you actually have too much costs. If you underestimated your overhead, the same thing, your costs are not where they're supposed to be. Therefore, you have an elevated income, which is wrong. So either way, whether you overestimate or underestimate, is going to give you the wrong income state, wrong amount of income. So that's why you need your adjustments. Yeah. Okay. Now, the traditional approach to applying overhead cost to a product or service is to use a single plant-wide overhead rate. That means it's not labor, it's not material, it is not a specific department that you have overhead rate for. You will have an overhead rate for the whole place, one rate. Okay, that's the traditional approach. But in order to be more accurate, usually more accurate, if you want to be more accurate, then you divide your work into different departments. Each department has its overhead rate. In the same formula, the overhead rate, estimated overhead rate divided by the activity in that specific department. But where the traditional approach that they will use one rate for the whole factory. Okay, and that means your whole place is one pool. The whole organization or the whole corporation is one. The whole factory is one pool. Okay, so the overall estimated overall overhead divided by estimated activity units. All right. That's the traditional approach. Now you have the ABC approach. That's more accurate. ABC means activity-based costing. So that means that's the best. It's much better than the traditional approach, ABC. You divide the place into different activities, okay, and then each activity will give it a rate. So you may have several rates depending on how many activities you have in your workplace. All right. And I think, let me find, I think the best thing to explain this thing is to do an example. Okay, and I'll be back in just a minute to figure out the problem, and we will do a problem from the book. So give me a few minutes and I'll be back. So I'll let that thing run until I come back. Wouldn't take too long.
So Cypher, we on the mic, we live right now.
So what are the mornings for you?
Man, tired. I woke up a little now at 4:30.
I told you there was somebody cleaning there.
Huh? Alright, now.
How far y'all going with y'all problem? And we present tomorrow.
Bro, can y'all please show me how to set this shit up? Bro, ain't shit on the PowerPoint.
What you mean? Look, the current ratio, you talking about how to set it up, right? Yeah.
Yeah, like.
It shows you how to find the current ratio on the PowerPoint that you sent.
So I find the current ratio and just put whatever it is beside it and just leave it. Then go to the next one.
Yeah, use the formula.
Easy.
That's the easy.
2.7.
That 15 kind of line.
That was some progress. Some progress.
You get them
What that is?
on the 14.
What's wrong working at Waterbury?
I just don't work for them. I ain't mean to say hell nah like that.
I was like, hey man.
That's been going over notes.
I just got here about 10 minutes ago.
That's all you know. I been working on chapter 14 that I should have been already turned in.
That's just the pictures.
Take one or two, huh?
Don't you have to do your presentation, man?
So next Thursday, the last day, pretty much. I'm trying to get. No,
He said he gonna give us time though, so we do it. So we probably got to a week after.
what for this research?
You can ask somebody else.
Cause by the looks of it,
You know what I mean? But
get my 6 days off right there. I'm trying to be done with this shit by Tuesday.
Next Tuesday.
Cause I can go home for them 2 days to Sunday. I appreciate that. I was trying to get the I gotta go back home for a little bit. Just give me a peace of mind.
Yeah, the time I'm going home tomorrow.
Shit, if I get done by Tuesday night, I'm getting shit. So call up a little shout out, hey, wanna go on a date? Go to the movies? Hotel room? I can't afford no hotel room.
I swear to God, I promise you, that's exactly what it's gonna do. Cause your brakes, when you brake, it stops. When you like, if your shit already weak, it's gonna scrub.
What do you think?
Zero. I'm telling you. That's
Zero.
exactly what I'm telling you, bro.
I love black.
I'm not just saying this shit because I heard this is true. This is facts. Nigga, I'm looking at my
We gotta
brake
take some
calculator
escape,
in
too.
my hand. In my hand, bro. Like I'm looking at how bad
Bro.
this shit like broke off.
I'm just not feeling it no more. I'm just so tired of school.
I couldn't. I was
Yeah, shit. Oh, fire.
Nah, it was smoking though. Shit, cause might as well. It's metal.
You said it was.
Yeah, it's metal, fool. That shit's dangerous.
Yeah, bro.
I mean, the only benefit that you would get that you don't have to put gas in your own car.
What's that?
Like my son, the truck economy was and shit like that.
Credit on the other one.
Drive.
I'm more tired not to.
You know what I mean?
So,
Shit. You say.
man, really. But, yeah, but so you leaving tomorrow?
I'm leaving today.
Oh,
Mm-hmm.
how you gonna be up there?
Yeah. I'll make a video. Have my on my computer.
I feel
See what I can do.
Where you going, Guru? Guru, where you headed out to?
Forward.
Where you headed out to?
You gotta be right out. I ain't gonna lie.
Some media day shit. I don't do that shit no more.
Media day, what's going on?
For the football team?
Yeah.
What about the football team?
They hitting the forward. I'll be there tomorrow. I'm going tomorrow.
They have the what?
They having a media day.
No, it's like it's for the whole conference.
Where? Where's them?
Some
Did
hotel.
y'all have to do
Oh yeah, you from
I'm from.
Did y'all have to
Oh, Omni Hotel.
Hmm?
Downtown Fort Worth. Cause that's what they just held the fantasy football thing last
They do
week.
it every year.
What's it called? It's called
What's
like.
up, did y'all have to
The
go?
Omni.
I can't.
Well, so we the most making
I
y'all go.
think the Omni.
Yeah.
That's
Actually,
why that's why I went to
I
Felt
can't
Fest was last week for that
The
fantasy.
Fort Worth Club. That's what
Oh, that's still downtown.
Oh, wow, y'all got to go.
No, it's just like he select a
gotta do
few
interviews and shit.
kind of represent.
I just want to be my too. Ask me questions.
They giving y'all interviews and all this stuff, but they only giving y'all 8 games.
I mean, this is a conference. This is like a little. This is like the whole like
Oh, okay.
two players from each team. Comes to this little breakfast buffet.
Y'all get eight.
Yeah,
Y'all get eight
interviews
games. I really can't
about the
lose
season.
not one.
And senior night on homecoming. And y'all play Langston.
I'm about to say.
So you know, wait a minute, homecoming is Langston?
Huh?
Homecoming is Langston?
No. Homecoming and senior night is Langston. It's not either or, it's both of them. On that one night.
You his face like y'all need to just talk about I don't play on the team.
You get what he's saying?
Yeah. Y'all senior night and homecoming, same day.
It's saying yeah.
And
And it's supposed to be like you supposed to have a game for
So
homecoming.
that's supposed to be the last.
Yeah, you supposed yeah, see you're not gonna be your last game.
Who makes this shit? Like,
Honestly, bro, if I would, did nobody wanna?
It's the people up front, bro. It starts with the people up front.
That's true. Too.
that's not, you know, the school messed up. Damn administration control the scholarship.
I didn't know how that even came about. Picture?
But they give you something. They give you something. Though. But you all got to understand how much financial aid they probably get back to.
No, man, don't football niggas be getting don't basketball and football don't even get paid.
Not
I
all.
don't know about the whole financial aid and scholarship.
Think about how much financial aid and stuff they be getting back. Refund checks be fat. Them white schools got money to burn like that.
Not really, cause they get limited to a certain amount of scholarships.
Cause
So
bro,
even if they put their best players on scholarship, can't even be. Like you got a bunch of coding, all of them can be on scholarship.
prime example, I got my cousin, bro, in Georgia. This nigga ain't, we never had shit, bro. Never had shit. This nigga to Georgia, bro. This nigga got a motherfucking, Camaro. This nigga got, he just jewelry and money, this nigga just turned up. Bro, he got no job. You know what I mean? Like you just went to school to play football.
They're going down.
That's how it be.
That's how I know. That's what I was saying. Like, damn.
Now the boys be having jobs.
That's how.
The boys do work study.
I need to Oklahoma State.
And they had a bigger school, so work study probably be way more.
You say my nigga Oklahoma State, they don't work, they don't do nothing. Them niggas got a car. They
Yeah,
clean
bro.
this place,
That nigga
they
barely
got
do-
cars, they
he
got-
don't do work
they
study.
use Jordans every day, basically.
Would they even really have time for work study?
No.
I'm saying, 'cause they,
Football and college is a 24-hour job.
yeah,
That works at
No, they wouldn't.
'cause they wake up, go to practice,
Shit, child.
shower, go to
Then
class.
they get, then the niggas that's not playing got work study.
Even in the summer,
That's what I'm
they
saying.
go to summer school and all that.
But they do this so they don't get behind.
Nah,
So
they
they-
have to.
they
That's
have to.
required for like summer, like they require their income official to show up like right after they graduate.
Should I kill it?
Bro, what's that?
So,
The sign critic, huh?
Get him, Nick. Get him, Nick.
smash his head.
Get him, Nick.
That's how your mama did you do it. Show.
Yeah.
Your mom be like, boy, you so scared. I gotta get out of town. I'd have been there for too long.
Hey, so what y'all think that noise was? And I don't think that was birds in the boss.
Damn, boy, you
That shit made a rattling noise, and then it's afterwards.
So no birds be having a rat.
That's a snake in here?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, y'all wasn't here.
We was talking about the snake that's in the closet, Dr. Ali.
Huh?
We was talking about the snake that's in the closet.
trapped in the closet.
No, there's nothing there yet.
I see.
Trust me, there is nothing.
Like
You ready for this?
part-
Huh?
Like we talked about it up.
The lady was there a few minutes ago. The one that you heard the sound.
Oh, that thump?
Yeah. Yeah, she was there. Huh?
Yeah. And
They found nothing. Yeah. They looked in details and they found nothing. Yeah. Okay. I found a problem. Where's chapter 18? Go back to chapter 18. I found problem E9A on page 829. Page 829. Let me see if I can get the Excel. Okay. Problem.
what page?
Page 829. Okay, E9A, exercise E9A, page 829. Okay? So, in February, so this is job order, cost, card, and commutation. So, like we said earlier, for each job you have a card, an introduction. And on that card you include direct material, direct labor, and overhead. And if you have several cards or several jobs, then you combine the material from all the cards, the labor from all the cards, the overhead from all the cards, yeah. And then that will give you the total cost per, if there's a house, for the whole house, okay? Or remember, job order is made for, or is used or adopted by companies that make a unique products, yeah. So, in February 2014, storage company worked on 5 job orders for a special cedar storage cabinets. So they're doing cedar storage cabinets. So this is not a mass level thing, yeah. Okay, if they are producing things on a mass level, then it would be process costing. So they are making storage cabinets. It began, so they divided the whole job into different cards, into different job orders, 5 job orders for a specialty cedar. Okay, it began job Z6 for Cedar Safe, incorporated on February 10 and completed it on February 24. Partial data for job Z6. So they want to make how many cabinets?
A lot.
No, they
It doesn't
5.
say-
I think 5.
It says 5 job orders. You don't know
Yeah.
how much each cabinet per order, though. I mean, it has information on
Well, anyway, 5 job orders.
this. No, it says on the
Yeah.
next page. Storage company produced a total of 50 cabinets.
50 cabinets, yeah.
per job.
And 5. That means
10 per
there are 5. They divided the job into 5 stages. You could say
So 10
5
per,
stages, yeah.
So 10 per stage.
So on the next page, you will see the direct material, the direct labor, but the only thing you don't see is the overhead. That's where we have issue with the overhead.
They got like machine hours used.
Storage company produced a total of 50 cabinets for job Z6. Its current predetermined overhead rate is $20 per machine hour.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Got machine hours used.
Yes, so the driver is the machine hours. So after they divided all the overhead by the estimated cabinets, and they came up with $20. All right, so that is our predetermined head rate. Is this a plant wide or ABC?
ABC.
No,
Plant wide.
plant wide. That what looks like plant wide, yeah. Okay, so how do we figure out the direct material, the direct labor, and the overhead? So the direct material, okay, so first the direct material.
Statement of cost of goods.
The direct material is given to us.
Yeah.
So you have the cedar, 8,000. Cedar, 8,000. And you have the pine. This is material now. Okay, this is material. The pine was how much?
6 racks.
6 racks?
Yes, sir.
Okay, now $6,000.
Yes, sir.
So they have cedar, pine. They have hardware also. How much the hardware?
2,000.
2,000.
Yes, sir.
What else they have? They also have assembly supplies. Assembly supplies. How much are the assembly supplies?
1,000.
This is the one I needed to expand. Assembly supplies are 1,000. So the total direct material is all of those
17,000.
17,000. All right, that's the total direct materials used. Now, remember we said the direct material and direct labor, no problem. Those are easy to trace.
Correct.
The problem is going to be with the
Overhead.
overhead. Now, labor, direct labor, direct labor. Okay, what kind of labor did they have?
Sawing.
Sewing,
Yes,
How much was the sewing?
3,000.
3,000. What else did they have?
Shaping.
Shaving. And how much was the shaving?
2,000.
And what else they had?
Finishing.
Finishing. And how much was that?
2,500.
2,500. And what else?
The assembly.
Assembly.
3,000.
3,000. So the total labor is
10,500.
10,500. Okay, now let's hear where the problem is. The overhead. They are saying its current predetermined overhead rate is $20 per machine hours. From the information given, prepare a job order cost card and compute the job order product unit cost. So we're going to look at how many machine hours each area and multiply it by
The cost.
20.
20, yeah.
And okay, if you look down here, the sewing, it took 120 machine hours, shaving 210, and on. So we're going to multiply each of those with
20.
$20. So the overhead, let me put the overhead here. Okay, so this is first, this is the material, bold and up. This is the labor, bold, and this is the overhead. Okay, under the overhead, the sewing, how many machine? 120, correct? Sewing. Okay, 120 hours times 20. Let's put it at first. The sewing, the shaving. How many hours?
210.
210 times 20. The finishing. 150 times 20. The assembly. 50 times 20. Okay, so 120 times 20.
2,400.
Okay, 2,400. 210 times 20.
4,200.
4,200. 150 times 20.
3,000.
3,000. 50 times 20.
1,000.
1,000. Now add all of these together.
Yes, sir. No. Let's see.
10,600. So the total cost is going to be 17,000 plus 10,500 plus 10,600. All right. So it's going to be. This is the total cost. Bold.
106,000.
Bold. And 10,600. So the all together is how much you said?
38,001.
Yes. So total cost. Total cost, that's material plus labor plus overhead, is how much you said?
38,100.
38,100. Now, what is the unit cost per cabinet?
Jared, take that number
Uh huh.
and divide divided
by
something.
how many cabinets they produced?
50.
50, yeah. So 38,000 divided by, I don't have the division key. I'm going to say just like that. 100 divided by 50, we said?
Yes, sir.
50 cabinets. And how much is that?
762.
762 per cabinet. All right. This is a job order costing example. I try to choose a very easy example here. It can be a little bit more complicated if you if you're purchasing the material, okay, and then you divide you purchase the raw material, and you divide the job into the whole product into different jobs, and some materials go to this job, some material go to this job, some material go to this job, and then you would have to estimate the overhead, do the rate of overhead, predetermined overhead rate, and then you apply that based on, see, each T account is a card, almost. Each T account is a card. Then you find the balance of each T account, yeah.
So what on the overhead? When you multiply the 20?
No, the over, yes, sir.
Where did the 20 come from?
That's what they give us the estimate.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's $20 per machine hour, and 120, 210, 150.
Yeah.
That's how many.
It took
machines they use.
the sewing 120 hours. It took the shaving 210 hours.
Okay.
It took the finishing 150 hours, and the assembly 50 hours. Each hour, they gave it $20 of overhead.
Okay.
That's what Brother Bailey said. Like we said, the issue is with the overhead, not with the material and labor. Those are easily traced. Yeah. Okay, and that's with chapter 18. For the balance of the time, homework.
And working on the project.
How? Because we have only one day left tomorrow. Maybe you better prepare your project.
Yeah,
Here you go.
we're preparing the project.
Chapter 14.
This is chapter 14.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
You've been preparing the project. That's what I'm saying. We're gonna be ready by tomorrow.
Okay, tomorrow is a presentation. Have your slides ready to present it? Okay.
And we got a drill soon.
Yes. Anybody has more chapters to turn in?
Oh, we
About to do it
working on
right
it now.
No, about to work on it right now.
Is your presentation ready?
Who, me?
Yeah.
Or not just yet, I gotta put the icing on the cake.
Same as but everybody really.
Do everyone has a flash drive?
I'm just gonna email it to myself. Log into
Don't use the cloud, the email cloud.
Nah, I'm not.
It's not going to, because somehow, remember guys, we had issue with it in the
I'm just
special
gonna-
Swahili class, and
I'm
yeah.
just gonna send it to my Texas College email.
Yes,
So I can log
just
in.
email it to your regular email. Don't use the cloud. And so you can easily get access to it and present it, yeah. Okay? So the balance of the time, I'll be in the office and I'll collect from you either more assignments or exam 1. I'm going to start putting exam 2 on, it will not be visible to you yet, but I'll start putting it online, yeah.
Yes, sir.
Once I'm done, because it's not that easy. I mean, the multiple choice and true false, you have to put, it's an exhausting time to put that material online.
Go ahead and give us 100 for it, Doc.
Huh?
Save you some stress. Let's go ahead and give everybody a.
Whoever's in her 100%.
You got to do it first.
Okay.
Yeah. You got to do it. Let me stop the, stop streaming.